The advice that I would give myself is, sweetie, turn around. Look forward, babes. Look forward. Where do you want to go? I understand you're crying right now. I understand you're hurt. I understand that this sucks, because it does. But where do you want to go? Let's go.
Welcome to the Purpose Finder podcast, where life is viewed through the lens of purpose, design, and legacy. Here, we believe purpose comes in different colors, shapes, sizes, and textures, because no two callings and journeys are ever the same. Hosted by Charissa Monroe Wilborn, this is where a purpose meets you where you are. Let's begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Purpose Finder podcast, where our mission is simple: to inspire you to find and uncover your life's purpose and to live a life overflowing with those three things: meaning, fulfillment, and significance. Why? Because deep down, we all crave belonging. No one wants to feel unfulfilled. And we are all asking that same question: why in the world am I here? Well, I hope you allow your search to end right here on the podcast. I am your host, Charissa Monroe Wilborn, and today I sit with an incredible, amazing woman who has gone through some things, but she is on the track to living a life of purpose boldly. You will hear her story, you will hear her journey and her lessons along the way. Please help me welcome Alexis Hunter. Someone, somewhere, don't want this story of yours to be heard, to come out, but we will not be stopped. We will not be moved. So I am happy that you are here. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for saying yes about 3-4 times. So we are grateful. You guys are grateful to have Alexis here because she has a story to tell. Many of the women listening you will hear yourselves in her life and in her life story, in her history, but also in her lessons. And I hope that you can walk away knowing that, man, if she can do it, so can I. So Alexis, please, they don't want to hear me read a bio. So I'm going to have you share with us, who is Alexis?
Yeah.
Where are you from? What do you do? And all that good stuff.
Yes. So again, Charissa, thank you for having me. Hello to all of your listeners and everyone out there. And I am very excited to be here because I know that there's power and there's freedom in storytelling. And so a little bit about me. I am a Miami native and I am of Caribbean descent. And so I just love life. I love the joys of life, the seasons, there's a song in Spanish that is coming to mind and it says like life is a carnival, and it's a very Caribbean reference. But when I think about it and I just think about what there is to celebrate and be grateful for, that I feel is the embodiment of who I am. But it wasn't always that way, if I'm being really honest. I am also widowed. At 30 years old, I experienced a life-changing moment that I could have never imagined. You know, growing up, I had the American dream of having the husband and the kid and the house and the white picket fence and the high paying job. And also, you know, this idea of like, I can do it all. I am Wonder Woman. And at 29 years old, I was doing that. Honestly, I was married. I owned my house. I had a son, and I was a national marketing director for an international nonprofit organization. I mean, it didn't get much higher than that at that time for me. And so I really thought I was there. I had made it and I'm on my way. And then May 3rd, 2019 happened. And it would change everything forever. My husband was on his way to Atlanta. He was driving and he was involved in a car accident. And as a result of that car accident, he suffered a traumatic brain injury. And after fighting for about 3 months, he passed away on August 3rd, 2019. And the way I describe it, it felt like the closing credits of a movie. Like when you're watching a movie and it's the very last scene and everything just fades to black. That is what life felt like. Like everything I had dreamed, everything I had imagined, it was gone because who am I without him? Who am I as a widowed single mom? Like, how do I exist in the world with this identity now being dead and gone? I felt like not only did I lose my spouse, but I lost myself. Like, there was a part of me that went with him. And so, there's so much more, and I know we're going to get into it, but when you ask me like who I am, that is such a major part of who I am today. And to know me is to know that story and to understand that even with that, there's been a lot that has had to happen, a lot of healing, a lot of rebuilding. But all in all, I am someone today that is always seeking for the joy in life, just to be grateful and to keep growing, keep evolving, and keep pressing forward despite what the circumstances are.
I don't know what it's like. I can't say, man, I can imagine, or I know how you feel, or I understand, because I don't, none of those three things are true. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know and I don't understand, and nor can I imagine. I have lost my parents at the same time, tragically, 2014. So a few years before you. So I know what it is to feel grief. I know what it is to feel pain. I know what it is to feel dark, black, and empty. Um, and I remember you and I met, Alexis, in a beautiful space in a room with an amazing, wonderful coach, Lisa Nichols. We met in her on her campus. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of those sessions and meetings being the one to hold you and hug you when you needed to cry and needed to scream. I remember being that person for you. I remember holding the space for you. And so now to see you, what's it, 3, 4 years later, smiling, remarried, finding love again.
Yeah.
Um, I want to hear more about Mason, like to know that you didn't allow what happened, as tragic as it was, to stop you, to hinder you, to take away from who you are becoming and who you became, so that you can continue to live your purpose. And part of your purpose, from what I know, is serving other women who have gone through the same.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll share more about that with us. But you told us who you are from 30. And before we get there, because what I do know is when we go through things in life, especially later on in life, who we were at 15, at 12, at 10, at 5, at 2 matters.
Yeah.
And so, can you share a little bit about the family you were born into,
Mm.
your life before you got married and had Mason? Who were you? Who was that little girl back then?
Yes, yes. So growing up, as I shared, I was born in Miami of Caribbean descent. And growing up, it was interesting because I will also say this: I am biracial. So my mother is Dominican, and that was the primary influence in the house, but my father is African American. And so growing up, and especially having such a heavy Hispanic influence, I always felt in between, like one foot in each camp. And that was very much the literal way that I grew up. We were eating uh, arroz con pollo and arroz de dulce. Like we were eating all of those things, but then also like my dad was teaching us about like the civil rights movement and understanding what it was like to be a person of color in America. And so growing up from that perspective, you get to see a wide range of things. And that shaped me into being someone that was always very open and curious. Like I, from a very young age, was very aware that the world did not revolve around me. Interestingly enough, the world did not revolve around me. And there was so much more to the world than just the little speck of land that my house sat on. My dad was a flight attendant and later on, like, moved around in the aviation industry. So aviation was always a part of my life. So as I got older, after college, I decided to become a flight attendant. Like it was always something ingrained in me to want to get out there, explore, ask questions, meet people. And I think when you grow up that way, it allows you to empathize with people in a way that, if I'm being really honest, a lot of people today don't. And because of that, and even back then, it was interesting when I came up against people that didn't. Like, it was kind of weird to me. Like, what do you mean? Like, you don't understand, or this isn't interesting to you, or you don't find this funny. Like, I always just had this openness and this inherent empathy towards other people and other just things. And so as I continued to grow up, continued to like experience different cultures, different places, different people, that was just something that always stayed with me. I was always like a very curious girl. Um, I also experienced hardship too, though, if I'm being honest. And I think that also kind of shaped my ability to empathize. I grew up in a home where my father was an alcoholic and my mom was like the textbook codependent. And I say that now um, in a way where I'm so proud of my parents, because since then my dad has been almost 30 years sober, I think. Him and my mom are still together. But when you grow up and you see these things, and I think anyone that has been in a situation where they've grown up in a home with an addict and a codependent, your perspective and your view of what's normal in the house changes. Like things that are not normal and things that should not be happening, you start to consider them as normal. And so growing up, I did see things and experience things too that also, like, later on I had to go back and ask questions about, and I had to go back and heal from. But all in all, I think who I was and the family that I was born into, it wasn't all like sunshine and rainbows, but there were also a lot of opportunities to like learn and grow from a very young age. And so when I talk about my childhood, I try to bring the two together because I think it's important to bring balance to the perspective. I think sometimes when we tend to be very like memory oriented and looking back, it's easy to like remember all the bad things, but it's like, no, there was good things too. So let's bring them together and keep some balance there. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me and my childhood and where I come from.
I'm curious because I'm listening to you, right? And guys, this is so interesting. I'm listening to someone who has gone through some work.
Yeah.
Even if you, and I'm listening to you because her and I have played on the same campus. So we have had the same coaches. We have done the same type of work. We've gone through some paralleled transformation and breakthroughs, and then we have healed some things, and we're still healing some things. And so we have grown, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it we've grown together. People won't understand what that means, but some of that, like, we have grown as sisters, just going through the mud together,
Yeah.
with the same teacher, if you will. And so
Yeah.
I'm listening to someone explain her childhood from this healed, having gone through work space. But how would you have explained, and you probably can't do this, Alexis, but how would you have explained your childhood 5, 6 years ago, 8 years
Ooh.
ago, having met Lisa Nichols, haven't gone through any of her campus anything, haven't done work, like, how would you have described where you are from back then?
But you mean before I went through the coaching and healing? Is that what
Yes, yes,
before? Ooh,
yes.
child.
See? So, okay, so no need to. But that is
Yeah.
the reaction because I'm hearing her talk about her childhood with, and I'm not talking about the proper use of words. I'm just talking about from a space of someone that is healed, someone that
Hmm.
has allowed herself to go through some things, work through some things, work through anger, work through pain, work through forgiveness. So to hear you say, I had a mom and I had a dad who was an addict, but I'm so proud of my parents. I had a mom who was a codependent, but my parents still together. And and you talk about the memory. So only someone who has done the work. And I'm saying this because I encourage women all the time. You have a program and programs that you do. I have retreats and programs that like we offer these to women because we've gone through the work and
Hmm.
we want to take them through the work. And
Hmm.
personal development, spiritual development, it's one of those things that people don't value as much as they should.
Yeah.
Like the person you see here talking to you in myself is someone who believes in personal development, personal growth. Alexis, she believes in it. And so when I talk about the passing of my parents 10 years ago, and I don't have to cry, I can still hold it together. I can talk about it from a place of truly hindsight of the memories of what they having to go through, needing to be necessary for me to do what I do. Like that is from a place of doing the work,
Yeah.
going through the transformation, going through the breakthrough, making sure that I have coaches and mentors who are there to help me up. Had I
Hmm.
not gone through that, there's no telling what I would be doing 10 years later. Having
Yeah.
lost both of my parents by in a plane crash just suddenly, like unbelievable. I wouldn't have no podcast, I tell you that. But I've allowed myself to grow. I've allowed myself and not grow alone. And so
Hmm.
when you and I met, Alexis, we were sisters, like in this sisterhood. It wasn't a fraternity, it wasn't a sorority. It was just we happened to be at a retreat together, and there was a leader who had gone through her own stuff 30 years ago who was like, I'm going to help women. And she helped you and I. And here we are. I could have a conversation about grief, about loss,
Yeah.
about pain, about childhood being not so peachy clean, but we're talking about it to hopefully share with others so that they can understand that, man, if I just allow myself. Now, does that mean that when you're going through, you're not going to hurt even more? You're not going to cry. You're not going to feel the pain. You're not going to be on the floor just screaming and want to hit someone and be angry. You're going to feel all those feelings, but you have to feel them. Sean would say you have to get it out. You have to get it out of your body because it's in our body where we hold a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of hurt. And so it's just beautiful to see the difference between someone who is doing the work consistently
Yeah. Yeah.
versus someone who you would have been before you started, because I could only imagine what it
Right.
would be. And I will never have you go there and say what it would have been. I want to deal with it now, but I know there's a difference. I
Yes.
know there's a difference. The perspective is different, and that's
Hmm.
it's all about perspective. Because I
Hmm.
think about you talking about 2019, having lost your husband. You lost him in a car crash.
Hmm.
But a year and a half later, or months later, now we go into the pandemic.
Right.
So now that brings on another set of trauma experience for you. How was that? Because I forgot that it was a car crash where you lost your husband. So I'm thinking by COVID, but it wasn't even that. So now you're going in from one grief and now you're going through this pandemic, just you and Mason. Tell us
Hmm.
tell us how that has been and how you were able to get now out of that.
Wow, that's an interesting observation because to be honest, after losing a spouse, going into COVID was like, I don't even
A
care. Like,
breeze.
whatever. I
Mm,
was so aloof to it because I was still like, it doesn't get much worse than this. You know
mm,
what I mean? Like, And whether it's immature or selfish, that's the truth. That was the attitude I had towards it. When I think about quarantine and when I think about COVID, it was actually, and I hope I don't offend anybody with it, but this is just me being honest. It was a blessing because it gave me space. It, because we were quarantined, because I had to stay home, because I had to sit still, it gave me the opportunity to really sit with what I was experiencing, like what had just happened. Because I'm sharing a snapshot and very quick, like bullet points of what was going on in my life at that time, but there's so much more to it. And it's not something that I could sit in a weekend and be like, okay, I'm good. No, I had to unravel, like, when you're married with someone, and Trisha, you can attest to this, like there's things that you learn about yourself. There's things that you learn about your spouse and you work through those things together. That's the whole point of being married. So when you become a widow or you lose your spouse, especially at an early age, you're left holding the bag. It's like, wait a minute. There's no closure to this conversation. There's no exploration. Like, how do I figure this thing out? And so during quarantine, that was when I had to spend time figuring out, like, well, what are my coping mechanisms? What are the things that make me Alexis? Like, where does Alexis like to eat if he's not telling her where we're going to eat? What do I like to do by myself? Like, there were things that I had to figure out. And so sitting at home and having to think about it, or yeah, being forced to think about it, was exactly what I needed at that time. I'm not saying
Mm.
that COVID is a good thing or I'm glad that it happened. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, looking back on it, it was the thing I didn't want but I needed.
And now this I can say I totally get you and totally understand, because when the pandemic happened, which is about 2020,
Mhm.
that was 6 years after I had lost my parents.
Mhm.
And the worst, when I say the worst season of my life, the worst experience of my life is 2014, November 9th. From that day forward, to me, that's to this day, that's still the worst. So as things have happened since then, literally I'm like, if I can go through that, come out of that and still be alive, I'm good. I'm still here.
Exactly.
I could take anything. So when the pandemic happened, I it didn't affect me the way it affected so many other people.
Right.
I just didn't like, and it's because I just didn't perceive it. It just, having gone through what I was, and 6 years ago, and 6 years out, I still was grieving. I
Mhm.
still was also running
Yes,
from
me
the
too.
grief, because it was then shortly after COVID, then we met Lisa and
Right.
went through our
Right.
transformational process, and that's when I really dealt with it. So I'm still very hard, because I'd become real hard, because I wasn't dealing with grief, so I was faking it while I making it type of thing.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and so no, I didn't look at it. Just didn't affect me the way it affect other people.
Mhm.
Not being, and I still had a job that allowed me to work. I was a healthcare worker, so I could still go to work, or I still had to go to work. So that was also nice and easy, because for me, staying home would not have been good.
Mm.
Being where now all I could think about is, man, my parents aren't here and I'm by myself. And because I wasn't living at home, they are not
Mhm.
here. Like, that would have driven me to my end. I
Mhm.
can only
Yeah.
imagine. Um,
Yeah.
so still having to go to work, still being able to hop on a plane if I wanted to, believe it or not, um, is what was my pandemic, if you will.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I know what it means to have gone through something before that. And it's like, man, the world thinks that this is worse. Lose two
Right.
parents. Lose two
Right.
parents that you love. Lose two parents that were a part of your next 10 years of your life plan.
Mhm.
And now you have to figure out, how do I do this life without them?
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are other men and women. You know how many times throughout the week, throughout the day, I get messages from people who, I've just lost my dad, I've just lost my mom, and it hurts. How do you, and, they're reaching out to me because they're like, man, we know you've lost both. I just lost one and I'm hurting. Can you help me? What good word of encouragement and hope can you help me? And this is what our stories get to do to those listening. If nothing else, this podcast is to show the listeners that no matter what you're going through, like Alexis' purpose is going to look different from mine. It's going to look different from the person who was on last episode. It's going to look different from yours. Like purpose comes in all these different shapes and sizes and colors and textures. But we all go through crap. We all go through journeys and experiences that make us believe that, am I worthy? Is it possible? And who would have thought that you would have found love again?
Right.
Here you are, married again. How is that transition? Because there are many women
Yeah.
who out there who have lost a spouse. It could
Mm-hmm.
be by divorce, it can be by separation, it can be by
Mm-hmm.
death. And so they are either widowed or separated or divorced, and they are wondering, man, am I worthy of love again? Will I ever love again? Or do I want to love again? And how did
Yeah.
you answer those questions for yourself?
Yeah. So it's been, as a matter of fact, at the time of this recording, yesterday was the 6 year anniversary of my first husband's passing. So it's been 6 years. I met my current husband in 2022. So I think that was 19, 20, 21, 20, 4 years later. I think if the math is right. I'm not a mathematician, y'all. So I hope I got that right. I think it
If
was
it's
4 years.
22, so about three, two and a half,
Three.
2.5, 3.
Okay. Where did I get four from? Anyway, so
No one's counting. No one's counting. I
there was some
promise
time.
you.
Yes. The point is, there was some time. And in that time, I had to make a lot of decisions for myself. I think when we go through grief, and yeah, when we go through grief, we have a tendency to feel justified to sit in it. I just lost my spouse. I just lost a parent. I just lost. And I should be allowed, I have every right to sit here. And I think to a degree, there's some truth in that. We have to allow ourselves to feel. And you just talked about that, Trissa. Like you have to give yourself room to deal with what you need to deal with. But I also believe that there comes a time where you have to make a choice. How long are you going to sit there? Because no one's going to push you out of it. They'll try, but no one can take you out of that space. You have to choose to get up and out of it. And I got to the place where I was like, I don't want to sit here anymore. I miss him. I wish things were different, but I can't change it. So I'm either going to continue to sit here or I'm going to get up. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know how it was going to change, but I knew something needed to change because, again, Trissa, there's so much there that I'm not sharing, but was so riddled with grief to the point where I was sick. Like I was on medication for insomnia. I was on medication for anxiety and depression. Like I was very heavily medicated for a very long time as a result of grief and as a result of choosing to sit in it. And so when I finally decided like, I don't want this anymore, something needs to give, something needs to change. That was when the transition started happening. So it wasn't, I lost my husband today, I grieve tomorrow, and then the next day I'm going to meet someone. No, I had to choose me first before I could allow someone else to do it. And when that happened, I believe it opened the door for me to meet my husband because there were some things that I needed to work on. Like I needed to heal from, I needed to figure out, and I needed to understand and learn like what does it mean to love me again? Like I think when we talk about grief, grief is under the umbrella of love. And this is not a Webster's dictionary definition. This is Alexis's opinion. Is that grief falls under that umbrella of love. We feel grief because we loved. And so now I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I'm going to hold grief with an open hand rather than a closed one, what does that look like? Like, how do I continue to feel grief, but also open the door for love? How do I do that? What does that look
Hmm.
like? What does that mean?
Say that again. How do I say that again? How do I, and I don't want to jack it up, how do
Yeah.
I
Like with an open hand, like hold grief and allow
Mhm.
love in at the same time.
say so they both can exist
So they both can
at the
coexist.
same? Mhm.
Because I think you had said it too, Tristan, like grief has components of anger in it. So for me, I was very closed off. I was very angry. Like, how could this happen? And it wasn't so much an anger for me, but it was a rage for my son. Like, my son is 3 years old. He didn't deserve this. Like, why does he have to grow up without a dad? That was like the main driving force for me. And so I had to learn how to, one, let that go, but two, again, like, okay, grief is always going to be here. I just mentioned, like, I'm 6 years in and still grieving. I spent a lot of the time yesterday crying, like, because it still exists, but I've also opened myself up for love. And so, one, I had to choose that I wanted to love again, love myself, and allow someone else to love me. And then two, I had to learn what that looked like for me in this new era of my life. And in doing so, I postured my heart and put myself in the physical presence and physical position to meet my husband.
Mhm.
Oh, you want me to keep
I
going?
I got y'all. I hear those in the back. So we would like to know more. And so I'm gonna pull, but I want
Okay.
to pull because sometimes people need to see the
Yeah.
practicality of
Yeah.
the possibilities that can happen.
Yeah.
I promise you, there are people listening who are saying, "Man, what does that look like?" And because there's also that guilt that comes to it. Like, if I love again, is that gonna mean that you know I don't love them, or am I cheating on them, or whether you're divorced or whether it's by death? Like, how do I? What does that look like? And of course, for those listening, it might look one way than it does for you, but I still want them to be able to see, like, what did you truly do? Did you now start go out? Did you go out on dates? And did you have those thoughts of, what is my son gonna think if mommy now starts dating? And, do you allow yourself to get all queasy and have the butterflies with somebody else when there is still also grief, like you say, very much present? So yes, we want all the details.
Okay.
And
So
you're willing to share.
yes. So, not so shameless plug. If listeners want to hear the whole like story, you can follow us on YouTube at Lex and Lev. That's where my current husband and I we talk about all things dating and our life prior to dating. But I will say what I really had to wrestle with was not even so much like, am I cheating? But it was, what are other people going to think about me?
Mm,
Especially my late husband's family, that I still had a relationship with some of them and wanted to maintain open communication so that my son could continue to have a relationship with that side of the family. It's like, what does that look like for me to introduce someone new while also having this whole side of the family? Because it's like, is it my ex? Is it not my ex? Like, how do I even talk about this thing? There was this fear of what other people would think. And that kept me very shackled, for lack of a better term. That's what it felt like. Like, I can't really explore anything else because I don't want anyone to feel hurt by some of the decisions that I would make. Funny enough, if anyone has met my son, like anyone that I know that's listening, or if you've met Mason, Mason is very emotionally intelligent. And I honestly think it's a natural gifting that he has, because even from a very young age, Mason continues to grieve, continues to talk about his dad, but he also was like, Mommy, I want you to get a new husband. Like, I want a new dad. Like, he was very vocal about that, about wanting to have someone in that space. And I, of course, understand, like, from a child's perspective, they may not understand the complexities of that. But what I took from that was a heart posture, again, of being open. Like, yes, I miss my daddy, but I know that I still want that figure in my life. I still want that kind of present. I've chosen that this is what I want. Um, and so for me, when I say I had to do the work and heal, for me, it looked like working through like shame, not so much guilt, but shame of things that had happened in the past, and recognizing how that was playing a role in how I was showing up moving forward, or even giving myself permission to move forward. I had to work through things that happened in my marriage that now I don't have someone to work this out with, and I'm not going to work it out on the next person. So what do I do now? So I had to go into therapy. I had to get a coach to kind of work through some of these things. And as I did that, I also gave myself permission to be happy again. I think when we deal with grief, there's this expectation that we're supposed to be sad all the time. People are supposed to pity us all the time. Especially as a widow, there's this idea in people's head of like this sad, broke widow. And it's like, I'm not any of those things. So who am I? And is it okay? Is there space in community and society for me to say, yes, I'm widowed and happy. Yes, I'm widowed and I have joy. Yes, I'm widowed and I have peace. The and there. And I think I had to give myself permission. Exactly. I had to give myself permission to have both, to be both. Exactly. And when I did that, I started going out. I started doing like solo dates. It's so funny because I joke with my husband now. I'm like, man, I miss sometimes like just going out by myself.
What was his response?
Just what's that?
Then go then. I'm not stopping you.
No, it's funny because he says that and I'm like, well, I say that, but I don't really mean it. But just this notion of like, when I think back on that time when I was in that space where I had just come out of this very dark place and I had moved into this space of, I'm just going to explore the things that make me happy. I'm going to explore the things that bring me joy, that bring me peace, that allow me to enjoy life again. I started hiking. I started bike riding. I started going to crafting classes. And I started meeting people. That's how it happened. I started meeting people. I started going to events. Like, I just started putting myself out there, but I was putting myself out there as a new version of myself, a version of myself I hadn't met yet. And when I did that, I found myself in rooms I never imagined I would be in. And so when I met my now husband, I was at a singles retreat. It was over Valentine's Day weekend. And to be honest, I wasn't going with the intention of wanting to meet someone, because I had gone on a few dates before that. And I was just like, nah, after what I've been through, y'all not going to play in my face. Like, no, we're not doing that. I'd rather be by myself. So I had some pretty firm boundaries and like I don't want to say a very high level of expectation, but I just had a firm expectations of what I was going to allow and not allow. But at the same time, like I said, I knew what I wanted. And so I was going on this retreat because it was in Boulder, Colorado. They had some expeditions like snowboarding and skiing. And I had always wanted to snowboard, but Black people don't really snowboard like that. I'm just being honest. Like, we don't do that.
No, we don't. We love our lives. Thank you very much.
So I was like, I really want to snowboard. I don't know any one of my friends that would want to go snowboarding with me. So why not have like a really cool weekend, meet some new people, and do something that I really want to do? If I meet someone, cool. If I don't, that's fine too. And that level of surrender and openness was something that was new for me. It was very new. But it was on that retreat that I met my current husband. He was there and he did not go snowboarding, but we had a lot of similar interests, a lot of on our callings were similar. And so we started a really real friendship. It was the first time I had a friendship with a guy outside of my husband that was like really real and legitimate. And I didn't feel like he wanted something from me. It was a real friendship that blossomed into the relationship I have today.
Hey, purpose seekers. If today's conversation has you thinking about your purpose, what it is, how to find it, and how to truly live it, then I have something special just for you. Introducing the Purpose Finder Formula. And you have free access to this 20-minute training designed to help you uncover your purpose and start living it with confidence. No fluff, no guesswork. It's clear, practical, step-by-step guide to finding meaning and gaining clarity and direction. Your purpose is calling. Are you ready? Head over to www.charissamunro.com/Purpose Finder Formula. Enter your info and I'll send it straight to your inbox. Imagine waking up every day knowing your life has meaning, impact, and joy. That's what awaits you. So don't wait. Grab your free training today. Let's get back to the episode. Beautiful. And I love to hear it. I love to see all the little hee-hees and the little, because I want the women to see like there's so much joy. Like that was what kept me during my grieving period, even to this day. Like every time I woke up, it was just, there's always that script of, joy comes in the morning. And not happiness, because for a long time it wasn't happiness. I'm sorry, happiness wasn't there, but joy is something very different, very different. And that feeling of joy that was renewed and came every morning was what I would hold on to even to this day. And that is the joy that only comes from God himself. And so I want people to be able to see, like, even the joy that I have of doing this podcast, like there are these things, like you said, that bring great joy, but to see the smile on your face, to see the growth, to see that you put yourself first before going after someone or even opening up to someone, like just having to make a decision. And sometimes it's just that decision, like you say, to not no longer want to sit in your grief. And so I hope that women are truly taking what it is that you're saying to heart as an answer to their, can I love again? Can I be happy? Will I find joy again? Will I find someone for me? Does this have to be the end? Is there like all of those questions that you're asking, the positives to those, the positive answers are very much at your reach, but you have to do something about it. They won't just be dropped in your lap. You have to make the decision. You have to open your hand, because you can't expect to let go and let in when your hands are closed.
Right.
So I think that was a very good illustration of, you can hold grief, but you can also hold love at
Yes.
the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then just the thought of also there being some healing that you can find for
Mm-hmm.
the grief in the love that you allow and accept.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you are helping other women
Mm-hmm.
do the same. So what led to that? What happened one morning or a season in your life and you said, you know what? Now I know that this is a part of my calling and a part of my purpose.
Yes. So it goes back to the decision making. And I want to highlight that again because it's something that I definitely see in the widowhood space is that we have a tendency to want to collect as a community. And that's okay. Community is a healthy community is a good thing. The problem is when we collect as a community and it's not healthy. So what started happening is First of all, being a 30-year-old widow, I was the only one that I knew in my community, in my immediate community. No one in my family had lost a spouse at my age. None of my friends had lost a spouse at my age. And, I think it's interesting you mentioned COVID. So, coming out of that COVID space, well, what happened? We all learned how to connect online. And so I'm in the Facebook groups, I'm on the Reddit threads looking for community, looking for like to be seen. Does someone understand what I'm going through? Does somebody get this? And unfortunately, what I found, what my experience was there was a lot of, I call it wound licking. I feel like there's probably a better term for it, but in the sense of, this is where I'm cut. Let me see where you're cut, and let's just keep poking at it, not really doing anything about it. And to me, that was incredibly depressing, incredibly, um, just, I want to be respectful, but to be honest, I didn't like it. I really didn't like it, and it was such a turnoff. And I felt bad about it because I'm like, these are people that I want to connect with, but they're pushing me away because this is not the way that I want to connect. I want
Mm-hmm.
to hear, how are you making it through? I want to hear that things are going to get better. I want to hear that there's life after this, not the opposite. And especially all the time, I was just bombarded with a lot of this kind of messaging, like life is over. I'm never going to remarry again. My kids are depressed and lost. And I'm like, no, not over here. Mm-mm. As for me in my house, no, we're not doing that.
And
And
even if we
so,
are there, we're looking for a way to get out of there. So tell me, how do I get out of there? Tell me
exactly,
that you're depressed, but you don't have to stay. Tell me you're lost,
exactly.
but you don't have to be lost. Like, I
Right.
totally understand.
Yes. And so I was like, you know what? I will create the space. Since I can't find it, I
Oh,
will
I
create
love
it.
that. Created. And right there, purpose was born.
And right there, purpose was born.
You saw a problem and you said, I'm going to create the solution. And guys, this is exactly why I created this very platform so that you can hear people's stories and then you can hear the moment when it clicked for them, when it switched for them and they're like, I just see a problem. And you know what? Instead of complaining about it, because you could have complained, you could have backlashed, you could have done anything, but you said no, I am going to become the solution. And that is when purpose was born for Alexis. And tell
Yeah.
us more about the work that you do
Mhm.
in this calling.
Yes. So right now, I actually do a few things. But in this specific space, I am doing one on one coaching with other young widows, helping them navigate the ebbs and flows of grief, helping them rediscover purpose, and helping them figure out how to find love again. The very same strategies and things that I did are things that I'm coaching them through. Because again, when you go through grief and loss, you lose a part of yourself. There's a sense of identity that gets lost, and everything flows from identity. So if you don't know who you are, then how do you know where you're supposed to go? And so being able to create content for widows on YouTube and just sharing lessons that I've learned, as well as doing one on one coaching, that has been tremendous in me, again, creating that space for them to see, like, hey, I've done it. If I've done it, you can definitely do it. And giving them permission, I think that's the biggest thing, is giving them permission to be happy again, giving them permission and hope that just the way that it is now doesn't mean it always has to be this way. It really doesn't. It doesn't always have to be this way. And you moving on, you finding love, joy, hope, peace again doesn't mean that this person didn't exist, doesn't mean that you don't love this person anymore or they're not significant. It just means that you've learned how to carry that memory and that legacy with you into the next phase of your life. So that is kind of the core and the essence of what I'm doing now as it relates to grief and widowhood.
And then there's also helping these women understand, because I'm going to now pull something else out of you, the how to deal with when the valley comes again. Because there is going to the valley, then there is going to the mountaintop. You know, the valley is you've lost, you're divorced, husband has passed, or now you're widowed, or you're divorced, you're single. Then you find love again, you marry again, you date again. So now you're at the top of the mountaintop. You are now um, figuring out your new identity. You figure out, man, this is what I was born to do. So now I'm going to live up my purpose. So you're doing all the things. And then even in that love again, even in that new relationship, that new identity, that new life with the new house and the picket fence, then something else happens and the valley hits. And so for you, there was another valley that you hit in this new relationship, and having to now deal with that, with all of the new relationship and the new identity of who you are. Talk to us about how you transitioned now from that, even that second valley, third valley, and still go, just kind of do the up and down of not staying down, but still coming back up.
Yes. So, that's a very interesting perspective. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is to allow the process to happen. So for me, I lost my spouse in 2019, got remarried in 2024, and immediately my husband and I wanted to conceive. Like neither one of us are getting any younger. But we loved each other and we both knew like we want to have a child. And it took about I want to say almost 18 months for us to get pregnant. And we were absolutely over the moon, super excited, just believing like, okay, this is God's promise. God told us, the word says like the time has come. And about 9 weeks later, I miscarried. And, you know, I've heard of women having miscarriages, and there was a part of me that empathized or that sympathized with it, but couldn't really empathize because there was a part of me that was like, because I haven't experienced it, I don't really understand it. But again, I could understand grief and loss. Now, prior to that, I had my grandmother pass, a few friends of mine passed, and I felt equipped. Like, okay, I've been through grief before. I know what this feels like. I got this. But going through a miscarriage, that was a different kind of valley because there was so much connected to the conception of this child, so much hope, so many prayers. Um, it just felt like the promise fell flat, is what it felt like. It felt like God had ripped the rug out from underneath us. And it was just a different kind of grief. And what I had to quickly learn, and this is why I preface what I said with understanding the process. I didn't quite know how to deal with what I was dealing with when it happened, but I knew that there were certain things I had to allow. I had to allow myself to have a bad day. I had to allow myself to cry. I had to allow myself to be angry. I had to allow it because I knew that for a fact that if I tried to bury it, if I tried to move on too quickly, if I tried to pretend like everything was fine, this thing was going to fester and it was going to come up later. And because I'm a person of faith, I was just like, Lord, I know that there's a reason for this. There's still a blessing in this. And it doesn't mean that the promise is still not true. It doesn't mean that I won't conceive again. It doesn't mean that I'll never have a baby again. Like, it doesn't mean any of that. I may not know why this happened right now, but I'm learning how to be okay with it. And I think allowing that to happen, because honestly, it still hurts. We're not talking about something that happened years ago. This was like a couple months ago, like it's something that I think I still go through like every month. Is this going to be the month? Is it not the month? Is it, so the feelings come up, but it's understanding in all of this about giving ourselves permission to be human, giving ourselves permission to be real and be like, okay, I'm in the valley right now, but you know what? I know that the valley leads to the mountain. And I think there's also having the understanding that to go from mountaintop to mountaintop, you have to go through a
You have
valley.
to go
Like
down.
you,
Exactly.
you, right. You
Exactly.
can't just walk to the next mountaintop. You got to go down to go back up.
I don't think people think about it that way. And actually, I forget about that point.
Hmm.
Is unless you build a bridge as you're going, and that only happens in the reels.
Right.
You do have to up, then you have to go down, up. Some valleys are gonna be deeper than others. Some valleys are gonna be flat. Some valleys are gonna have quicksand. Each valley may look different, but you are very true. You do like there's the ebbs and flows of life to get from apex to apex. And everybody's valley is going to look different, and that's for me. So as a social worker, as a life coach, like that's where the empathy sits for me, is that everybody's valley and mountaintop is going to look very different. um I don't have the same values you have. I have two children, never went through a bad pregnancy, never went through a miscarriage. So I will at this point never understand and never know. I have friends, I have family members who have gone through miscarriages, but that doesn't mean that I understand. So am I there for them? Um, but again, I understand grief and loss. So that's where I can hold the emotional intelligence line for them, is I understand what it is to lose. And even having a child, I can feel what it would be like if I lost my child. So there's that. Um so when you were shared with me a couple of weeks ago about your loss, it hurt me. And it hurt me because I immediately went to, I couldn't imagine losing my two before they came or while they, like, I couldn't. I can only imagine what you were going through. If I can't imagine what it would feel like if I lost. But there are so many women, Alexis, going through miscarriages and not talking about it. There's so
Right.
many women going through hard and difficult, challenging pregnancies and not talking about it.
Hmm.
You only hear about the ones who have really good pregnancies, or a little here and there, but no one is talking about the stronghold, or just the hold it has on women, period. Those who are
Yes.
unable to get pregnant. um and I think more of people, whether you had a good one, whether you had a not so good one, whether you weren't pregnant at all, like, I think we need to talk about it. I think it needs to be talked about.
Hmm.
And I wanted other women to see you, doing so well, walking in your purpose, having found love again. But even in the midst of all of that, just a few months ago, you once had a child, and now having to work through the loss of that child. And how are you making it through day by day? Because, like you say, this was 5 years ago. This is now just happening, and you're able to
Yeah.
talk about it.
Hmm.
And it hurts.
Yeah.
I'm sure it hurts. But it doesn't, that you don't have to sit there. I like how you
Right.
say that. You don't have to sit there. You allow yourself the days to have a bad day. You allow yourself the days to hurt. But eventually you don't have to sit. You don't have to get stuck. And as we
Hmm.
talk about get stuck, what would be the greatest advice you would give to a man or a woman, but especially the woman who is unstuck, who is feeling stuck and unsure of who they are, of where they're going, of their purpose? What would be the advice that you would give to them, that you would give to yourself? And I say that because you're going through.
Hmm.
Whatever advice you would give to yourself is the advice that you would give to them to help them today.
Wow. There's a lot that I would say. Um, but I'll share this piece that I'm actually working off of now. It's very current. I think for many of us, especially those that tend to be really deep in personal development work, we want to understand, like, where did this come from? How did this get here? Why do I think and act this way? Why do I talk like this? And it tends to be very memory oriented, right? We need to go back and reflect on things that happened way back when to get understanding for things that happen now. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It can be very informative. You can unlock things for your healing. There is fruit in that. But I think we need to bring balance to it with vision, being able to forecast looking forward. Because when we're looking back and only looking back, it tends to create this reality and this perspective of us always searching for, like, what's wrong, what went wrong, what did I do wrong, what could I have done differently? And that can be very encapsulating and can keep you stuck in the very thing that you're looking back trying to get out of. Versus, okay, I'm here. I may not know how I got here, or maybe I have an idea of how I got here, but where do I want to go? I think sometimes, especially when we're going through grief, because grief has a tendency to do this, to have us looking back a lot, is, where do I want to go? What is the vision that I have for my life? What is the vision that God has given me? Scripture says, take the vision, write it down, make it plain,
Plain.
so that a herald may go and run with it. Like, how do we understand where it is that we're supposed to be going? And how can we make it super simple so we can make simple goals from it? So we can pray about it. So we can create a tangible plan for ourselves to get unstuck. I think being able to, the advice that I would give myself is, sweetie, turn around. Look forward, babes. Look
Mm-hmm.
forward. Where do you want to go? I understand you're crying right now. I understand you're hurt. I understand that this sucks, because it does. But where do you want to go? Let's go. That would be the advice that I would give, because it gets to the point sometimes where it's just, you have to create the new norm, and there's different ideologies and theories, and I won't get into them, because depending on your walk of life, then you pick the one that works for you, right? But for me, I just had to realize, like, man, I have all this wealth of knowledge and all of these tools, and sometimes they just bog you down. Sometimes you just gotta go, just find your lane, understand your lane, even if it doesn't exist yet, but just head in that direction, and you'll get there.
And thank you for even shedding a light on how important vision is in connection to purpose.
Yes.
And they actually go hand in hand. They need to live on the exact same street and going in the exact same direction. You
Yeah.
almost can't understand your purpose without also having a vision.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could have a vision, but it would mean nothing if there is no purpose attached to it.
Right.
So I think that was great. I'm glad you illuminated um, illuminated that, because people need to know. Like, turn around. You can look just for reference,
Mm-hmm.
but don't get stuck in that direction. So,
Yeah.
like she said,
Yeah.
sweetie, turn around.
Turn
Let's
around,
go.
babes. Look
I
up, babe.
appreciate that. Thank you so much. Oh, Alexis, the time. Where's the time going? Where's it gone? I would have loved to have keep talking, because I know that women are seeing themselves in your life, in your story, in where you are now. They're seeing yourselves in the joy and the happiness. And I hope women who are listening to the sound of our voices, that you are making the decision, whatever decision that is today, to do whatever you need to do. Whatever you need to do to turn around, you're making the decision to get up and no longer sit. You're making the decision to find yourself again, and you're making the decision to become, so that you can truly walk in the purpose that God created you to walk. If nothing else, that is what I hope that you grab from today, from this episode and this interview, this chat, this conversation with my dear sis. Alexis. Alexis, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being candid. Thank you for allowing me to get nosy and kind of get all in your mix. We're just happy for you, and we hope that as you turn around and see the vision that God has for your life, you will see that He has so much more in store beyond your wildest dreams. So thank you.
Thank
Before we leave, I love to end on I think for anybody, whether you are going through or whether you are needing something comfort or whatever the case may be, food is always the one thing that brings people together. It's always the one thing that makes me happy. It brings me joy anyway.
Hey.
So I love to find out from my guests, what is your favorite food and
Mm.
your favorite restaurant?
Oh man, Trissa. So you wanted to wrap this up, right? Because I am such a foodie. I love food too. So my favorite food, like if I was my deserted island food,
Uh-huh.
would be a Dominican dish called monfongo. They actually make it in Puerto Rico too, but that's
Okay,
neither
I
here
know
nor
it.
there.
I know it. It's plantains, right?
So yes, it's mashed
Yes.
plantains with
Uh-huh.
you can put different meats in it. A lot of times it's like pork, like fried pork and garlic sauce. A lot of like garlic. I love garlic. A lot of garlic. And then again, it's served with a side of meat. So like I like a seafood monfongo. So like mine is made with shrimp with a red sauce. Ah, it's so good. So that's my favorite food. That's my desert island food. Favorite restaurant. Okay, you're gonna laugh at me. I don't know the name of it.
There's a hole in the wall somewhere.
it it is but it is what is not. It's actually a very upscale Greek restaurant back home in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
However, I don't remember the name of it, and I've been gone from Miami for I don't know, almost 5 years now, maybe more. I know where it is. I know how to get there, but I don't remember the name of it because
So
the
that's all that
name is like
matters.
not on the building.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's Mediterranean Greek food. I love Mediterranean food as well. So yeah, I could do that. Or Fogo de Chao if we're not in Florida and there's a good
Okay.
Brazilian
Over the
steakhouse, take
cow.
me
I
there.
love Mediterranean. I love plantains, but my plantains need to be sweet, which is why I don't
Oh, okay.
appreciate because I've had mofongo,
Uh huh.
but normally it's green plantain, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I like I'm Caribbean, so it must be
Mhm.
sweet. Like if when you buy the plantains, if they're not black and flies flying over it, don't
You
fry
don't
them for
want
me.
it?
Like I like them when that's when they mushy
Oh
and
wow.
sweet and just mm, yeah. That's my favorite food, by the way. See, guys, this is what food does to me. Like we could come together on food. Very big foodies over here. But yes,
Yes.
please go ahead, and if you want to hear the full story of Alexis Hunter, if you want to also continue to get empowered, you can follow her on YouTube at Lex and Lev or
Lex and
Alexis
Lev.
M.
That's
Hunter. And
yes.
go ahead, tell us.
Oh yeah, so Lex and Lev is the channel that I have with my current husband now, where it's kind of our family vlog as well as like all things Christian dating. So you can check us out there. And for widowhood content and all things me, it's Alexis M. Hunter on YouTube.
Awesome, awesome. So please take what you needed from this episode, run with it, go into action immediately, and do not get stuck. Sweetie,
Yes.
turn around.
Turn around.
Let's go. Until next time on the Purpose Finder podcast, I am your host, Charissa Monroe Wilborn. See you soon. Bye.
That brings us to the end of today's episode of the Purpose Finder podcast. If this conversation resonated with you and added value, take a moment to like, share, and leave a comment. We would love to hear what inspired you. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for spending this time with the Purpose Finder podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.